What's going on? Brett Klika here with SPIDERfit Kids. Welcome. Today, I want to give you some ideas if your kids are playing sports, maybe they have practice, maybe they have tournaments, whatever it is. A big question that I always get is, what should we be feeding the kids? What do you feed the kids before, during, after sports to make sure that they got energy and fuel and all these different things? And I just want to be clear, I am not a dietitian, I'm not a nutritionist, but I am a dad, my daughter's in sports. I know a lot about the science of how kids process energy and things like that. So if you need some specific things, make sure to find a dietitian or a nutritionist. But I just want to show you some pretty practical stuff that we can use to keep our kids going. Now, another thing that I want to share is I think it's being a parent is a delicate balance of not being too overboard. We're not letting our kids have any of the cookies, the candy, things like that, and then balancing out with good nutrition. That is a delicate balance because if we completely block our kids from ever having any of the quote bad stuff, then they're going to go crazy someday. So the angle I'm coming at is I think that as parents that we do have an opportunity. My daughter plays soccer, she plays all kinds of different sports when it comes to halftime snacks, and it's not a judgment thing, but I think we can do better than bringing cookies for halftime. And it's not so much parents automatically say that, everyone can see my dog Gizmo right over there. She's joining the party. But it's not a matter of saying, parents always say, well, kids, if they eat sugar, it doesn't matter. They're not going to get fat. They're just going to run it off. We need to stop this stupid notion of nutrition is just about not getting fat. That is defeating more people than it's helping. The idea that, food is just this enemy that we need to avoid getting fat. So this is not about kids getting fat, not getting fat. All this is about is going to show you how can we energize our kids and how can we get them learning at a young age what food can do to fuel their bodies so they have a healthy relationship with food as they get older. So really quick, you see I got some food here. As a parent, as someone who's busy, there's a couple things that need to happen if we're talking about nutrition, what we prepare for our kids. First thing, it's got to be something relatively simple. It's got to be something fast. I can sit here and I can show you these amazing Pinterest-worthy combinations of this and that, and guess what? You're not going to do it because the morning of a game or practice or something like that, it's, hey, get your stuff together. How come you didn't get your stuff together? Your kids in their room playing with their toys 10 minutes before the game and you haven't even found their stuff. That's the way it goes to the parents, so we don't have tons of time. So I'm going to show you some pretty practical stuff. Another thing, it needs to be fun for the kids. I can also show you some pretty bland type of things that kids just aren't going to be into. That's why we're losing the battle against cookies and all that. Look at the packaging on cookies. I mean, it's tremendous, but also realize fruit's colorful. Kids like it too, so there's some opportunities there. And it needs to be fuel. Now, again, it's not about, kids get fat, they don't get fat. Well, kids need to realize, wow, if I eat this before the game or at halftime or after the game, there's a positive impact. I feel better, I have better energy, and I can do what I want to when I get a play. That's what this is about. Also understand a couple things before I dig into the food. We got protein, we got carbohydrates. You hear all these things bounce around. I want to take a quick second to talk about what these do for our kids and really for us. So let's talk about protein. If a food has protein, and what makes protein unique is it has amino acids in it, has a lot of nitrogen, and our muscles really need it, particularly after, we need some during and before, but particularly after a sport. We've beaten up our muscles, we tore them down, we created muscle damage, we need to help build it back up. Another cool thing that protein does though, if you have something that is relatively higher in sugar, we talk about the glycemic index. Have you ever heard of the glycemic index? It's a measure of how fast and how high a food raises our blood sugar. Now, high blood sugar theoretically means a lot of available energy, but if you don't use that energy, if you're not out just going as hard as you can for a long period of time, it's eventually going to get stored, or it's just going to expire very quickly, and all of a sudden you're going to slump. What protein does is if I have protein with something like a white bread or cookies or something like that, the protein is actually going to slow that rate of increase of blood sugar. So it's actually going to take, if I combine protein with a food that is a little bit higher in the glycemic index, it's going to give our kids, particularly before a game, it's going to give them energy for a longer period of time. An example would be, let's say you only have white bread. Mixing white bread with peanut butter, particularly if the peanut butter doesn't have sugar or any of that stuff, it's just peanuts. If you mix it with that, it's going to make the negative impact of that white bread is going to decrease significantly. All right, so that's what proteins really do. Now, carbohydrate, we know that carbohydrate gives us energy. It's our body really likes to use that as our first form of energy. But when we get into things like sugar, sugar is a very high glycemic thing, but we're doing added sugar to things. So it's a lot of energy really quick, and then it dies down. Now, kids really like things that are high in sugar because it tastes really good. The problem with that is it's not really good sustained energy, and most of the time they're putting sugar in things that are pretty crappy from a nutritional standpoint anyway. But most of the energy kids have during sports or something comes from the day before because it has to be stored in their muscles to really give it to them. So loading them up on pasta doesn't necessarily need to happen, just eating good rounded nutrition. And so looking at our things, finding carbohydrates, looking for things that are low or no added sugars. And finally, fat. If you've read any of our articles before, the physiology of kids actually use fat at a high rate. Kids don't use as much glycogen, which is that stored carbohydrate, as much as we do. They actually have more intramuscular fat, intermuscular triglycerides. They actually use fat. So kids need fat, but another thing fat does, similar to protein, is when fat's combined with something that is higher in the glycemic index, fat dissolves a little bit slower, and so it allows you to sustain the energy for longer. The problem when things are high in fat, it's a high digestive cost. It's hard to digest fat. And so if kids are going out after eating a big pound of bacon, most of the time it's not going to be the ideal thing before or during a game. And really right after a game, something super high in fat, it prevents some of the other nutrients from being able to. So super high fat stuff isn't necessarily practical. So you understand now the structure of what we're, now let's look at some specific things. So remember, it needs to be fast, it needs to be fun, and it needs to provide fuel, the 3 Fs. So first we're going to start before the game. So your kids are up in the morning, and remember all these things that we don't have to worry about, but before the game, really that energy going to the game was set kind of the day before, how their normal eating patterns, if they're eating generally balanced nutrition, they're not just living on ice cream, cookies, and all that. So in the morning time, if you got a game coming up, we want something that's going to be easily digestible, moderate in fat, it's going to have some protein, and we want to have it's just balanced. We will want to look for something balanced. It doesn't really give us a whole lot of advantage to have something super high in protein, super high in fat, super high in carbohydrate. So something like, you see right here, I don't know how well you can see it there, honestly, a peanut butter and banana sandwich before a game is great. Now what, I put it together, you see I chopped it up. Now we talk about that fun factor. Well, all I did here, talk about fast, okay, peanut butter sandwich is about as fast as you can get when it comes to food preparation. But what we've also done here, you can see, is I just cut it in fourths. That's fast, it's very quick. Now the fun piece of this, it's cut up, it's fast. Now the fuel piece, the bread, now I have whole wheat bread here. Why whole wheat bread is better for like a young athlete if they're going into a game, the fiber in there. It's not, don't get the super high fiber because they're going to need to take a poop break at halftime. But if you get something that just has a reasonable amount of fiber and whole wheat bread, it's going to combine with any of the sugars in the bread, which are higher glycemic, and it's going to make it so those sugars actually give them energy throughout the whole game. So that's why I recommend the whole wheat bread, because it's going to give them longer. Now the peanut butter is going to be a mix of fat and protein. Again, more of that sustained energy, but it's not like we're giving them a big slab of bacon or a big slab of meat that their stomach has to digest for a long period of time. It's a moderate amount of peanut butter. And then I threw a banana in there. Now, bananas are going to be high in potassium, so these things that we look at losing electrolytes in the heat, bananas are high in potassium. And bananas are also one of those things that they're considered a moderate glycemic. Most fruits considered a moderate glycemic, which means that when it goes to give our kids energy, it's not going to be a high glycemic where it gives them a ton of sugar energy right away and then it dies by halftime. It's not going to be a super low glycemic like almonds where it just slowly digests and over time where they might not even get the benefit of the energy till after halftime or the end of the game. It's moderate. So the fiber in the fruit sort of slows the release. Now bananas are on the higher end of the moderate glycemic, which means that they are going to raise the blood sugar, but not crazy. It's kind of a perfect balance. So get those bananas in, and then just for the fun factor and just something else, just throw a nectarine on top. Literally, peanut butter on the bread, chop, chop, banana, chop, chop, put it on there, nectarine to make it fun, they're ready to go. About 2 hours before the game. Now they're in the game. You're bringing snacks for in-game, post-game. And this is where a lot of time when I was a kid, I honestly don't remember anything except for orange slices during the game. And after the game, you might get a treat or something like that. Now I go to my daughter's games, and it's like during halftime, they're getting... It's like a competition. You can get the worst stuff. And the parents are always saying, oh, they're going to run it off. Again, it's not about getting fat. We need to get past that. It's not, oh, they'll burn it off. It's about, well, just let's get them a healthy relationship with food. Realize that food can be fuel. So you look at this plate here. Again, we're talking about halftime snacks. Now, applesauce. Now, again, when you go to applesauce, can have all kinds of crap in it. we get this applesauce Trader Joe's, it's apples. It's smashed up apples. That's what it is. They boil it down, smashed up apples. One of the cool things with applesauce, at halftime, they do need that energy that's readily available to get them through. So we don't necessarily need that super long, sustained energy that's going to get them through a whole game. We just needed to get them through the half if they're hungry from that. If you're going to use something with bread in it, that's not a bad time for white bread. White bread's broken down a little bit quicker. But you see we have with something like applesauce. Now this isn't necessarily high in the fun factor. If you do have time, dress it up a little bit, put something on it. It is kind of an ideal food. It's readily available. It's natural. It's an actual fruit that you can put in something like this. Again, fast, it's fuel, and it could be a little bit funner, but we can work with that. Next, we got grapes. Now grapes aren't necessarily that exciting, but what we've done is we froze these grapes. All of a sudden it becomes this novel thing. So now it's a new thing, especially if it's hot outside. Frozen grapes, help cool them down. Cut them in half. You see that we cut them in half just like that so kids don't choke on them. But kids love the frozen grapes. You can either cut them before you put them in the freezer, or you can put them in the freezer and cut them later. Again, fast, it's fun, kids like them, and grapes are good fuel. Grapes are higher in that glycemic index, which means that they're going to give them that readily available. It's a great halftime type of snack. So we got those. Now, what I did here too, we got some apples. And we've all used apples before. You can even buy chopped up sliced apples, but to kind of give them a little bit more fuel, which apples are fast, we know that. To give them a little bit more fuel, for that halftime fuel, apples are pretty high in fiber, so I can give them a little more sustain. I put some honey, you can't necessarily see it, but I put some honey over the apples. So if you put this over a plate, almost like it's a nacho, and the kids can just take off of it and go. But the apples, with a little bit of honey's gonna be that faster type of energy available, higher glycemic, and then I put some cinnamon on it. Again, fast, fun, and it's a good form of fuel, particularly for halftime. So those are a couple things in there. Now, after the game, so let's understand really quickly what's happened physiologically after the game. They went out there so that they've had fuel, but they went out in the game, they ran, they pushed themselves, their muscles are beat up, they've robbed their muscles of some glycogen, they beat up the muscles, there's some small tears, and that's what makes them sore. And so we do need some protein, and the recommendation, 4 carbohydrates to 1 protein. You might have heard that chocolate milk is the ultimate. Chocolate milk is a great combination. So if you bring chocolate milk, wow, it's a treat. It's definitely got the fun factor, it's definitely got the fast factor, but it actually is good fuel. Now if you're sitting there yelling at your phone, your computer, bread, it has sugar in it. Well, after exercise, so after we go out and do something really hard, our body can absorb sugar. But here's the thing, for the cost of that sugar, we're also getting a lot of protein, we're getting a reasonable amount of fat, and you might say, well, lactose, okay, they have those arguments, you can split hairs all you want. But we're talking about kids, and one of the toughest things is getting kids to do things. So chocolate milk after an activity is not a bad thing. We're mixing in a lot of nutrition, and their body actually can use that sugar. Another thing, pineapple. Now, I'm a huge fan of pineapple, but pineapple is because what we want to do after the game, ideally from a fuel standpoint, is they've done all these things, beat up their body, we want to fill the tank back up so they have energy again, they feel good. The problem with just saying cookies or something that doesn't have a good mix of nutrition is that they'll take that in, and then a couple hours later, it's just like and with kids, they're not necessarily going to say, oh, Mom and Dad, I'm not feeling that well, and I'm rather tired. I think I'm going to take a break. No, it turns into all of a sudden they're tearing up the house. They turn into little terrors. That's the way they manifest being tired. So this is to prevent some of that stuff. So the beauty of pineapple is it's going to restore those glycogen stores and all that. But there's also something in pineapple called bromelain. Now, bromelain has been shown in research to help decrease inflammation and muscle soreness in athletes. So pineapple is very popular amongst particularly strength athletes and other athletes like that. So pineapple after, we also got the chocolate milk after, but I'd love to hear your ideas and what you've used for kid snacks. Again, fast, fun for the kids, and it provides fuel, considering that we need that mix of protein, carbohydrates, and all those different things. So go ahead and drop that in the comments section. Thanks a lot for coming and checking out. Just so you can see the plates again, you can see what we got going on here. We got our apples, but food is an opportunity, and it's not our enemy, and it's also not a gluttony thing. food is an opportunity. And the younger that we can get kids to understand that food is an opportunity, food is an opportunity to experience great taste, food is an opportunity for community, food is an opportunity to connect with others, and food is an opportunity for fuel. I disagree with a lot of the fitness professionals say food is fuel and that's all it is. No. Sitting in the backyard with a bottle of wine and a great steak with my wife, that's more than fuel, let me tell you. So let's help our kids at a young age develop a healthy relationship with food. And here's just some opportunities. I'd love to hear what you're doing. Don't forget, let's join the movement. If you're not a member of the Powerful Playground yet, check it out, www.powerfulplayground.com. We got this stuff all the time. Become a member. Hey, and I'll see you soon.